So how many people have been ignored because of their beliefs on some of the beliefs they have by the hoi polloi, the masses? Ignored. Rob?
I have.
Thank you. Who's been laughed at times because of some of their beliefs? Lanny?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And who's been fought with because of some of the things they hold dear?
Absolutely.
Yes. So Gandhi, everybody knows Gandhi. Gandhi said first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then what? And then you win. So recently I've been reading a book called The Road to Serfdom by F.A. Hayek. And F.A. Hayek was a Nobel Prize winning economist, and one that I've found a lot of inspiration from. But out of the 350 pages of Road to Serfdom, the thing that hit me most wasn't the 350 pages, but in fact was the preface. Does anyone know what the preface said in it? The preface of it says, "This book is dedicated to the socialists of all parties." And I kind of scratched my head. I said, well, the socialists of all parties, I thought only the Democrats were socialists. But in further analysis, after reading, actually I knew this before reading, but when we look at our principles and we look at federal spending ballooning, not only under the Obama administration, but under the Bush administration, and the current administration has done little to stop the spending. In fact, many of us know it's increased exponentially. We see that the idea of socialism isn't just a Democrat or Republican or any specific party's government platform, but it's all of them. They all have their little niches and picks and pieces of what they want. So, what went wrong? We kind of asked, what went wrong? Well, how did we go wrong? So I started thinking, how did we go wrong? And it all comes down to me to the word principle. And principle, if you analyze the word principle, it's the foundation. It's the very base. You can't divide principle any lower. It's already the very foundation. If you look at the word principio, it's where we get the word prince. As in, there's no more, you can't, the decision maker is there. It's it. So, what are my principles exactly? And I think Thomas Jefferson summed it up best when he said, "A government which governs best is that which governs least."
Amen, brother. Yeah.
So as we look into state government, it's easy to say, oh, as a federal legislator, oh, that's a 10th Amendment issue, that's a state issue. But as we look at state issues, how can we take that idea of that which governs least is which governs best? And it's all with a hierarchy. Here we go with a pyramid. This isn't the MLN pyramid. But it's the pyramid of hierarchy of accountability, with the individual being at the climax, then the family, then the community, then the locality, state, federal. As it trickles down, the closer we can get decisions to the individual, the better. Ultimately, I believe in individual rights, that regardless of what 99% of a community or people feel, if that's an inherent right that I have, I don't care how they feel. And neither should legislators. Democracy is actually two wolves, it said. Two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. The tyrannical majority needs to be kept in check by the ideals of individual rights and rule of law. Individuals seeking freedom from the state has been a fight for millennia. This isn't a new fight, the individual versus the state. It's been going on forever. The Code of Hammurabi, back in ancient Samaria, specifically delineated the rights and the laws and how a king could not be arbitrary in those laws. Likewise, a negative example of that is the draconian constitution written in ancient Greece, which delineated and regulated everyday life to such an extreme that we now have the word draconian from the guy Draco, from the tyrant Draco. The Torah is literally translated as the law. Roman jurisprudence is famous, and the Apostle Paul claimed, "I'm a Roman citizen," because he had inherent rights. The Magna Carta limited the powers of the king to be arbitrary in the dealings with the people. And ultimately, the apex of an individual's freedom was spelled out in the U.S. Constitution. A contract between the citizens and its government not to limit people, but to limit government. These ideals of limiting government are what make America great. Today I look around and I see people of all ethnicities, religious backgrounds. We have Helga's German. I have Jonas who's Japanese. I'm sure people I have Mormon, non-Mormon, Catholic, every race and religion probably imaginable. So you think, what is it that bonds us together as a people? We don't have a common language half the time. Well, what are the things that bond us together? And for me, as a demographic, it's not the Super Bowl, it's not the Big Mac, it's not the mass marketing, but it's the idea of freedom is what brings us together as a people. Freedom to do, freedom to be, and freedom from government and interference in our lives, outside of what should be specific, outside of what it's specifically designated to do. Those of us who are LDS know that we are encouraged to vote for those who put forward the ideas of good government. So we're supposed to support people with ideas of good government. Well, what is good government? Is it being nice? Is it a good neighbor? Is it the Relief Society president? What is good government? And on the same lines, President Benson said, the most important single function of government is to secure the rights and freedoms of individual citizens. Rights are either given by our Creator as part of a divine plan, or they're granted by government as part of a political plan. If we accept the premise that human rights are granted by government, then we must be willing to accept the corollary that they can be taken away by government. I, for one, shall never accept that premise. We must